Here are three reasons why I'm still buying ONDO, even though nothing I say is financial advice. First of all, I like its room for growth. It's not the best out there. I'm not going to sit here and say that, but I think it's pretty decent, especially for a project that's pretty well established, much like ONDO. When I take a look at ONDO, $20 as my price target for this bull run. Now, $20 is currently around a 22x from here. Again, some people may be saying, oh, wow, man, take a look at this micro cap that could maybe do like a 1000x or whatever. But I'm not in here for micro caps, but I'm not looking for dinosaurs either. Like, I'm not looking for like a 3x or a 2x. Who cares about that? I want a project that is somewhat established, but really hasn't reached that mainstream status yet, where it becomes a little bit boring. And I believe ONDO does perfectly fit that bill because, again, $20 around a 22x from here. Let's say I were to put $1,000 into ONDO right now, and let's say ONDO went to the price of $20 during a fully fledged bull run, hypothetically, then theoretically that $1,000 at that point would be worth 22 grand, give or take. I mean, that's kind of crazy to think about, actually. Now, I'm not guaranteeing anything. I'm not telling anyone to buy ONDO, but the way you take a look at it is that, again, it represents a cryptocurrency to me, or should I say an altcoin, that really doesn't feel that risky, but still has that hypothetical upside. So I do like that. Now, also, when I take a look at ONDO, some people like to say, oh man, it's not going to do good during a fully fledged bull run. Well, in my opinion, during a fully fledged bull run, we see many projects do good. And something like ONDO, more specifically, historically, has showcased that, you know what, when the market does do pretty good, this tends to somewhat go along with the ride. It doesn't get all the attention. Of course, I totally understand that, but at least it gets some attention. So that does give me, somewhat of a good confirmation. There's no exact way to tell the future, but I do like what I'm seeing here. Not to mention, I believe that this bull run could just be a lot more special than back then because now there's over 600 million crypto owners according to Crypto.com research, which is more than ever before in history. But I think what makes this number even more amazing to me, at least, or should I say even more bullish, because the way I view it is that we don't have, Bitcoin at the price of $150,000 yet. Bitcoin has never ever reached that. And yet we have this many crypto owners. So what would happen if, let's say, Bitcoin goes to 200,000 or let's say maybe even 300,000? Would the amount of crypto owners only, quote unquote, be around 600 million, or would there be 700 million or even 800 million? Only time will tell, but that wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. And as the old saying goes, a high tide raises all ships. If, let's say, Bitcoin does do that well, especially considering the historical performance of ONDO, I don't see why it won't go along with the ride. Even though history doesn't always repeat itself, but I just don't see why not in this case. ONDO has good exchange listings. It's fundamentally fantastic. The community is A+. I mean, what more can I ask for, really? However, even besides that, this actually brings me to my second reason as to why I'm still buying ONDO, and that is, I think, going to come down to its amazing, rock-solid fundamentals, and let me explain why. Because when it comes to ONDO, I do believe that it's one of these type of projects that could really make a big impact in the DeFi space. Now, DeFi stands for decentralized finance. Now, why do I think so? Before I get into exactly the fundamentals of ONDO, I do want to talk about the scope and the size of the DeFi market, because sometimes people do overlook this. Because if we take a look at the DeFi market, aka again, the decentralized finance market, according to Grandview Research, that market size right there is predicted to reach over $200 billion by 2030. I mean, that's kind of crazy if you think about it. Now, when it comes to ONDO's fundamentals, though, it's even been stated that at ONDO, they design institutional-grade platforms, assets, and infrastructure to bring financial markets on-chain. Now, why is this special? Because we have to take a look at this deeper. For instance, they have a platform that's allegedly not available in the US. However, even besides that, I still think it's good nonetheless because this does allow individuals to buy, sell, and trade thousands of tokens backed one-to-one by traditional stocks, bonds, and ETFs. Now, basically, this is just a bunch of fancy words, but at the end of the day, this is basically thousands of RWAs in one platform. Now, let me explain what RWA stands for, because RWA stands for real-world asset. And some people may be thinking, okay, who cares about this? Well, actually, many projects out there are focused on RWAs, like, for instance, Zebic, another project that I'm very bullish on. But even besides that, the reason why RWA tokens, more specifically, I think could make a big impact is because RWA tokens, they are digital representations of physical assets on the blockchain. Now, some people may be thinking, okay, And why he cares about this, well, it's very special because these assets can range in areas like, for instance, in real estate, art, stocks, bonds. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, but that's just to name a few. That's very wonderful. And it's no surprise to me why many projects out there are focused on that. Again, Ondo is not the only one, but I would argue that, when it comes to being focused on that market, I would say that Ondo is pretty much one of the top out there currently. However, even besides that, we'll see that when it comes to Ondo as well, not too long ago, it was reported that its total value locked was over $500 million. And also, besides that being a very impressive figure, again, that's over half a billion. But even besides that, something that I think could be massive for the future of Ondo is something called the Ondo chain. Now, this still has a lot of unanswered questions, but really, this allegedly is purpose-built for institutional grade RWAs. And I did talk about RWAs, not too long ago. But even besides that, again, I think stuff like this is really good for the future of Ondo because even if, let's say, it becomes like a total flop or like people don't really care about it or like, whatever, right? Let's say there's no real sentiment about this. I still think it's good nonetheless because, again, people usually care about a project that's at least trying to do something, at least trying to, improve. So it's a good thing for me nonetheless, seeing stuff like this. Doesn't guarantee that Ondo is going to become the biggest project of all time or anything like that, which it will never become the biggest project of all time in my opinion. But you know what? I still think it could be one of these amazing projects and really just be able to establish itself as one of the premier altcoins out there that doesn't disappear after like one cycle. Like for instance, you know what I mean? Something that doesn't disappear after a bear market, after a bull run. At least that's the way to take a look at it. I think and has a bright long-term future here. This is a complete project in my opinion. Now, all it needs to do is just wait for a fully fledged bull run in my opinion. And now some people may be thinking, okay, how soon? Usually altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they typically peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. And the last Bitcoin halving event happened in April of last year, so 18 months from then would actually mean around October this year. Now, this has just been a historical scenario as a worst case when altcoins usually peak. But in my opinion, it's something I'm going to pay attention to because even though historical performance doesn't guarantee future performance in the same way, like it's not a set date or anything like that. But the way you take a look at it, like I mentioned earlier on the video, right? With over 600 million crypto owners, also when I take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, I just feel like there's too many bullish factors for, Bitcoin to just have its peak being at around $100,000. Like, I just don't think it's over yet. I'm still going to pay attention. And with the way Bitcoin is heading as of right now and also a bunch of other altcoins, I don't see why the market wouldn't, start picking up, especially as we go near the end of this year. This is just my point of view. We'll have to wait and see. But Ondo at the price of $20 wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. I'm going to still continue to acquire, hold, and I just wait because, again, $20, that wouldn't surprise me. And those are 3 reasons why I'm still buying Ondo. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's Wally the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.